The frigid Siberian tundra today is a seemingly barren place, an endless expanse of grass and snow. But if you were to venture beneath the surface, you'd find an ancient ecosystem frozen in time. Giant extinct beasts the size of elephants trapped in permafrost from the Ice Age, preserved in almost perfect condition. Some are the iconic animals you'd be familiar with, but others have revealed secrets about prehistoric life that we could never have imagined. So what are these creatures, what can their remains tell us about them, and can we bring them back through their DNA? And what discoveries does the future hold as global warming continues to melt the ice? The story begins in 1728, when scientists described an elephant-like creature from the polar regions based on fossils they had pieced together. Although by then it was nowhere to be found. This ancient animal was what we know today as a mammoth. In the decades that followed, more and more bones were discovered, ranging from Spain to Canada. Unfortunately, placing bone fragments together provided few clues about how they lived. More complete remains would be needed to find out what they were really like, including how they survived the cold. The breakthrough came when stories of frozen elephants entombed in permafrost reached Europe. The first documented encounter with one of these behemoths was in 1799. A mammoth was seen deep within the permafrost near the Lena River Delta. Fast forward 7 years later, and botanist Michael Friedrich Adam is staying in the city of Yakutsk. Whilst there, he catches wind of the discovery 1,000 kilometers to the north. After a treacherous journey through the tundra, he located the carcass and started digging through the ice. After the excavation was complete, the specimen along with the 18 kilograms of hair attached was sent to St. Petersburg. Nearly 100 years later, researchers found another individual along the Berezovka River. Noticed by a dog, the recovery expedition through the remote Siberian wilderness took 10 months. Despite being mostly eaten by scavengers, possibly cave hyenas, enough remained intact to identify how he passed away. The 40-year-old male was wandering the endless plains in search of food, until suddenly he fell down a steep crevice. Severely injured with no way out, when the tomb filled with snow, he suffocated to death. But mammoths were not just found in Siberia. In central Alaska, far beneath the surface in a dimly lit gold mine, a carcass lay within the mud. Dating to 21,000 years ago, all that remained of the calf were its face, trunk, and left leg. However, in 2007, a far better maintained individual was brought to light. A 1-month-old calf was dug up on the Yamal Peninsula with pretty much her entire body intact. The animal named Lyuba had suffocated in mud whilst crossing a river with her herd. Although very sad, her 41,000-year-old carcass is the best preserved ever found, and provides us with the best chance of resurrecting them in the future. But if we can bring them back, should we? After all, wasn't their extinction natural? Today we know that humans were almost certainly the culprit. Woolly mammoths had survived many glacial cycles before, and only went extinct after our ancestors started to hunt them. But the best evidence lies on the uninhabited Wrangel Island. Here they survived for 6,000 years longer than on the mainland, only dying out due to inbreeding. If climate change was responsible, they too would have become extinct at the end of the last ice age. Besides the woolly mammoth, the most iconic Pleistocene creatures were the saber-toothed cats. As one of the most successful mega-carnivores at the time, they found themselves at the very top of the food chain everywhere they went. Out of the two saber-toothed cats that persisted into the Ice Age, only Homo therium lived in the far north. Although the first of their fossils were discovered all the way back in 1826, it wasn't until 2020 that the first frozen Homo therium was uncovered. A mummified cub was found along the Indigirka River dating to 31,800 years ago. To find out its age, scientists compared its features to modern lion cubs. The analysis estimated an age of just 3 weeks. Homo therium's long neck compared to lion cubs confirmed theories based on fossils. However, the most debated characteristic was not totally revealed. Unlike Smilodon, it's unknown if Homo therium's canines were visible or concealed. And unfortunately, because of its age, it's impossible to know. Small tufts of hair from the corner of its mouth indicate that adults may have had a large beard. Based on its features, scientists hypothesized Homo therium was a pack hunter that preyed upon large animals like mammoths. So when humans wiped out their prey, they were unable to compete with the larger carnivores, leading to their extinction. Along with mammoths, another woolly animal roamed the Ice Age landscapes, and its story begins in 1769 when a skull and 2 horns from a rhino are found in the permafrost. This puzzled scientists at first, as rhinos today are only found near the tropics. And it wouldn't be for quite some time that another woolly rhino was found. In late 1907, in what is now Ukraine, a perfectly preserved rhino was found buried in an earthwax pit. 5 meters below where a mammoth had been unearthed a month prior. The specimen's good condition meant that scientists could construct them more accurately, and most importantly find out how they could survive this far north in the Ice Age. Just like the newly described mammoth, the rhino had a thick coat of fur and was soon named the woolly rhino. An even more intact specimen was uncovered in 2014, this time of a baby in Yakutia. This rare discovery provided the first DNA analysis of the species, revealing that the woolly rhino wasn't some relic of an era long past, and was closely related to the Sumatran rhino who still retains hair. Compared to its relative, however, the woolly rhino was much bigger and had a fat storing hump to get through adverse conditions. The woolly rhino began to decline around 17,000 years ago and died out no later than 9,800 years ago. Much of what we know today about woolly rhinos comes from cave paintings. Some paintings tell us what we already know, such as their long horns used to push away snow. But others depict more unexpected characteristics. Most of the drawings depict a black band dividing the body, others show rhinos fighting each other, and some show people killing them with spears. The woolly rhino was comparatively rare to other Ice Age herbivores, explaining their scarce remains and rapid extinction. One of the most frequently depicted animals in cave art are cave lions, meaning that early humans must have encountered them often. Something is strange about these drawings, however. None of them, not even the males, have manes, but an actual specimen would need to be studied to find out for sure. In Russia's northeast in 2008, a frozen adult was found, though it wasn't complete enough to tell if it was a male or female. 2 far more intact specimens were discovered in 2015. Although since they were both only a week old, they don't provide any clues about their manes. Found deep within the permafrost, their age is estimated at a staggering 55,000 years. It's believed they were resting in their den when they were suddenly entombed by an avalanche. The absence of oxygen allowed for such perfect preservation. The cub's DNA allowed scientists to determine that cave lions diverged from modern lions roughly 500,000 years ago. You know how we know the cave lion was common because of cave art? As the most frequently depicted, the steppe bison must have been the most abundant megafauna of the Ice Age. In 1979, in Fairbanks, Alaska, another discovery was made. An entire steppe bison was found in yet another gold mine. Dying in a blizzard, the animal was turned blue by a type of iron phosphate. More interestingly, however, the bison had claw marks and puncture wounds that matched those of cave lions. It's been speculated that the attack left the bison weak, making it unable to withstand the adverse weather. Since then, 3 more frozen carcasses spanning from 50,000 to 8,000 years ago have been discovered. For whatever reason, the steppe bison survived for longer than the other Ice Age megafauna. Fossils found near Russia's Oyat River date to as recently as 1000 BC. Although cave lions may have been the most common carnivore, the cave bear was the largest. But an almost perfectly preserved bear on a remote Siberian island wasn't what scientists thought at first. The bear was not from the Ice Age. In fact, it was only 3,500 years old. This puzzled scientists as the most recent cave bear fossils are 24,000 years old. Upon further inspection, the so-called Etherican bear was determined to be a modern brown bear. Estimated at between 2 to 3 years old, the animal had damaged bones, indicating it fell from quite high up. The bear was fresh enough that food remained in its stomach, the contents of which show us that it had been eating various birds and plants. So far, all of these discoveries have been in the Arctic, and I don't know if you know this, but there is another frozen world on the other side of the planet, Antarctica. With far more extreme conditions than the Arctic, few creatures dare to venture anywhere near the South Pole. But one animal which really seems to thrive in this icy realm is the penguin. And when an ornithologist was exploring Antarctica's Ross Sea, he stumbled upon a strange discovery. Lying across the pebbles were hundreds of Adelie penguin carcasses, most of whom were chicks. When analyzed, they were discovered to have come from 5,000 to 800 years ago. Global warming had melted away the ice and made it look as if they were new. But how did they all die, and why did they live thousands of years apart? The theory goes that the penguins had 3 waves of occupation at the site, each time being ended by a drop in temperatures, freezing the carcasses. The most recent, which ended 800 years ago, coincides with the Little Ice Age. The sudden drop in temperatures would have blocked the chicks from the ocean, preventing their escape. Whilst horses have a relatively small distribution today, confined to mostly the Middle East and Central Asia, they were one of the Pleistocene's quintessential animals, and no horse lived in colder conditions than the Lena horse. Inhabiting Siberia's far north, it's only expected at least one will become trapped in the permafrost. In 1953, a very interesting discovery was made, not because it was the first of these horses to be found, but because the trapped horse was pregnant and had a frozen fetus inside. 15 years later, another discovery was made further up the Indigica River, this time with an 8-year-old male from 42,000 years ago. The DNA extracted from this find sheds light on some aspects of their lives, including that they had a wider range in the past, stretching down to the Altai Mountains, and that they had thicker hair than any living horse. But they weren't the only horse to live in glacial habitats. Eurasian and North American horses diverged from each other over 800,000 years ago. Along with the mammoth, steppe bison, and caribou, the Yukon horse was one of the most dominant Ice Age herbivores in the region. Found in yet another gold mine was the partial carcass of a Yukon horse. Although only the hide remained, the hair attached could provide genetic insights in the future. The recovered DNA from all of these extinct animals brings up some interesting possibilities. Cloning is often thrown around as a way to bring extinct creatures back from the dead, but such a procedure requires a living member of a species, leaving gene editing as the only viable option. Using the genome as a blueprint, key features can be identified and changed, until eventually the entire genome is replaced. However, this futuristic technology may never be possible. What this means is that money for conserving living species is diverted to technologies that don't exist. As countless species are going extinct as we speak, it's hard to justify focusing on bringing back an already extinct animal. But one group of animals, the crocodilians, have been thriving for 95 million years. And if you want to find out about every living and extinct crocodilian, watch this video.